Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, one of the civic partners for this show. My guest today is John Tenbusch with the St. Lawrence County Planning Office. He's also a member of the St. Lawrence County Complete Count Committee for the 2020 census. John, welcome back to North Country Matters.
Thank you, Donna. It's good to be here.
Well, we have some important stuff to talk about today. Um, the census calendar this year has been impacted, of course, by the COVID-19 pandemic and has also become a bit of a political football, especially in the courts. John, what is the definitive date for ending the 2020 census this year?
Well, there is a short answer and a longer answer. The short answer is October 31st of this year. The longer answer is still October 31st of this year. But as you just mentioned, it is subject to various court decisions.
Well, give us a sense, John, of how the count is going in the county. Where are your bright spots in terms of returns, and where is more work needed to bring up the final count?
Well, overall, St. Lawrence County has done relatively well, in my opinion. Um, the numbers are a little bit lighter than they were in 2010, but in 2010 we weren't dealing with a pandemic. In 2010, St. Lawrence County had a response rate, uh, a self response rate. So this counts the people who got their invitation and went online or called the 800 number and responded. It doesn't include all the special efforts that the census has made to follow up and to get responses. But in 2010, that self response rate was 62.3%. This year, we're at 57.6 as a county. Uh, by comparison, New York State in 2010 was 64.6, and this year they're at 63.8. So they're closer to their 2010 response rate than we are, as a whole. And the U.S. as a whole has actually done marginally better than it did in 2010. The response rate nationwide was 66.5%. And as of yesterday, it was at 66.7%. So we're at 57.6%. That's, there's room for improvement. But given all the stuff that's been going on, I think it's not a bad number overall. My reason for saying that is that we have 10 communities that have exceeded their 2010 response rate. And these include Louisville, Canton, Norfolk, Stockholm, Pierpont, Madrid, DeKalb, Brazier, Lawrence, and even Hopkinton. So they've done better than they did in 2010. 84% of the population in St. Lawrence County live in communities where the response rate has exceeded the overall county rate. So the vast majority of people in our county live in communities where the count numbers are pretty good. The communities that have not done well are communities that we didn't expect to do well because they never really have done well. Um, Communities in the Adirondack foothills and communities along the St. Lawrence River, Morristown and Hammond, Macomb and Rossi, and then Clifton and Fine and Pierpont, excuse me, not Pierpont, Piercefield, and so those communities as well. Those are the ones that the Census Bureau knew have historically been hard to count, and they are proving to be hard to count this time around.
Okay, that gives us a good sense of where we're at, and the fact that it could be a lot worse than it is, given the kind of year we've had. That's for sure.
Yes.
So, John, are the enumerators, excuse me, still going around to some of those hard to count areas right now, even as we speak?
I don't know, and the reason for that is, with the various court going back and forth. You know, the census has been ordered to continue doing the enumeration. But I have dealt with any number of the enumerators here in St. Lawrence County, and they all had contracts, and their contracts were up at the end of September, or in some cases, maybe even before the end of September, September 25th, September 26th, whatever. I do not know to what extent the Census Bureau was able to A, entice, or B, require those temporary employees that had set end dates to continue working. And to be quite frank, um, several of my census contacts whom I would go to ask these questions, their contracts are up, they're gone.
So, so it really has been the perfect storm of a year, hasn't it? If something could go wrong, it did go wrong. You know,
Yes.
we have a secondary property that's in the southern part of the county, and we were up there one day a few weeks ago when the local census enumerator came down and stopped at our place to make sure that A, we had filled out our census, and that B, that wasn't our permanent residence. And so we had quite a long chat with her talking about a lot of the work that she's been doing, which is in the camp areas where people
Yeah.
have a second home or a hunting camp or something like that, and just how difficult it is to find somebody who is knowledgeable about the local road, and who's permanent, who's temporary. And it really has been quite a challenge for those enumerators, isn't it, in some of those really rural towns.
Yes. And that plays into the low response rates in some of those communities. The census works off what they call a master address file. So they have an address for your second home. Um, and so unless and until they can check that off as a second home, a seasonal home, they have to consider it as a unit to be counted, a household that they're looking for to be counted. And if they're playing tag with the people who are there, you're up there for a weekend or you're up there for a week, and the census enumerator doesn't get there during that week. So then the enumerator comes 4 times and you're not there. Um, that unit is reported as non-responsive, and so the response numbers in places like Hammond and Morristown, where we have second homes along the river, or in Clifton and Fine and Piercefield and such up in the Adirondacks, yeah, they're never going to get 50, 60, 70% response for just
No,
that reason.
no. And in fact, we were able to help her out because we knew which places around the pond were temporary or seasonal.
Yes,
So that kind of helped her to cross off those particular houses in our little area. Um,
yes.
so, John, when we talked back in April, you were awaiting some census outreach grant money that would help you to do some of this outreach. Did St. Lawrence County ever get that money and for those hard to count populations? And did you get to spend it?
Yes, we finally did get the money, and yes, we have it all spent. Well, except for what fell between the seat cushions, which we're trying to hoover up right now to see what we might do during October. We ended up getting $127,556 from the state of New York to do promotion for the census. We didn't get it until the end of August, and as far as we were aware at that time, we had uh, a deadline of September 30th. So we didn't plan any promotion activities to go into October. Our goal was to spend the money to do all our promotion by the end of September. We wrapped 3 buses in a van, and I don't know if you've seen any of them driving around the county, but that was our biggest single expense. And our goal was to hit the target populations that use the buses and vans the most, which would be low income people and the Amish. And both of those are hard to count populations. Our second biggest expenditure was for radio spots. And we worked with the North Country Association for the Visually Impaired. Um, they already had a program to work with radio stations. So they did a radio spot, and we engaged them to get it out. And so there was on a number of radio stations in all the markets, Messina and Potsdam and Canton and Ogdensburg and Gouverneur, through the month of September. Our third biggest expenditure was we sent a postcard to every single residential household in the county. I hope you got one.
We
All
did.
right.
We did,
All right.
absolutely. And we saw the
Good.
buses as well. So very
Yeah,
impressed.
good.
That is, when a bus goes by with a message on it, it's kind of hard to ignore.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's a rolling billboard. So we had considered doing a regular billboard, and, there is certain advantages, but there are also some disadvantages. If I have a billboard on Route 68, it's a busy road. People are going to see it a lot. But if I never travel Route 68, I'm never going to see it. The buses tend to go everywhere. And again, they targeted the hard to count populations that we wanted to talk to, the Amish and then low income people. The postcards was our attempt 6 months later, because everybody theoretically got an invitation from the Census Bureau back in March. We wanted to re-invite everybody to do their census and give them the appropriate information. Here's the website if you need it. Here's the phone number if you need it. And remember, the deadline is the end of September, so please do it now. And so we sent out 51,000 postcards. So that was our third largest item. Our fourth largest expenditure was a series of full page ads in North Country this week. The print editions. The Watertown Times had a contract with the Census Bureau, so they had some advertising that hit regionally. Well, we wanted to concentrate on St. Lawrence County, and we wanted to use. There are any number of people who don't subscribe to the Watertown Times, primarily, I guess, because of price. Well, North Country this week is a free newspaper, and the level of journalism is pretty good in my opinion. So we spent money with them to have ads for 7 weeks, and again ending at the end of September, uh, to talk about the census. Uh, the next largest thing was we got 3,000, a little bit more than 3,000 tote bags. We got about 1,500 face masks, and then we got about 1,000 activity books, census activity books, and those are designed for smaller kids. And we distributed those at, well, anywhere we could. A lot of food distribution sites. And as you know, that food distribution process this year, in the midst of the pandemic, became very, very important. So we worked with the distribution sites. Every bag they gave out, every box of food that they gave out had some census material in it. Again, just to let people know that yes, the census is still going on, and to give them the contact information, the website and the phone number. And the activity books for kids, they were very popular. People people would take one or two, and then at the events I was at, and then come back later. Can I get a couple of these for my nieces and nephews, for my grandkids, whatever? And so we were glad to make sure that those got out. And finally, we were able to put some spots on public television, and so they've run through the month of September. So our money is spent. We are going through the budget, looking for the $100 here, the a couple of dollars there that didn't get spent from specific line items, and we're going to try to do some additional radio spots during the month of October.
So it sounds like you've done just about everything you could do except stand on your head in the middle of the park in Canton and let people know that the census is there and that it needs to be filled out. My question, John, is that we had talked earlier in the year about those hard to count people. You've mentioned low income folks in the Amish, also senior citizens and college students. How successful was the local outreach to those groups, do you think? Because certainly the college student population was completely disrupted at the same time that they would have been in their dorms being counted because of the way colleges had to close back in the spring.
Absolutely, you're right. The college students were not able to be counted the way that the Census Bureau had planned for them to be counted. But the Census Bureau, they're the pros. They do this all the time. They were able to work with college administrations and count the students who lived on campus according to the dormitories they lived in. Now, we had members of representatives from each college on our complete count committee. and they reported that they all were able to report to the Census Bureau those residential students, and they also reported that there were fewer than I expected students who lived off campus. I expected a couple of the colleges to have significant numbers of students who lived off campus, and according to their records, they had some, but not a lot.
So that's
So
good
we,
because that
yeah,
is a concern because
yes,
certainly the education money that comes back to us because of things like the census is critically important in places like St. Lawrence County with colleges and with a lot of public schools.
yes, yes. Now, seniors, you asked about, we were not able to do the sort of traditional outreach that we have done in the past to seniors. What we have done in the past is, there are any number of activities that the Office for the Aging, for example, puts on for and with seniors, and all of that got shut down. But we were able to put some census materials in the Meals on Wheels program, and then the that was one of the reasons why we wanted to send a postcard to every residential address, so that any number of those addresses are occupied by seniors. So we wanted to make sure that they had it. Now, seniors were looking for a paper form because that's what they've seen in the past. And so we absolutely wanted to emphasize with seniors the 800 number that was available. Because, well, I mean, there are any number of people, period, who don't have computers. But presumably that percentage of people without computers is a little bit higher when you get to older age ranges. But pretty much everybody has a phone or a cell phone. And if they had the phone, they can call the 800 number and get an actual human being and fill out their census.
So,
And the
John,
website,
yeah, excuse
yeah,
me, let's just go through really quickly how people can report to the census. You've mentioned the website, the 800 number. Let's just give people that information in case they still haven't done it, and so that they can take care of that between now
sure,
and the end of the month.
absolutely. And people are calling my office. They have been calling my office since we sent those postcards out, and saying, I think I might have done it last March or April, but I'm not sure. Should I do it again? My answer has been yes, do it again.
Mhm.
The worst, if you're not sure, the worst thing that would happen is the Census Bureau would end up with two responses from Donna Seymour living at 123 Main Street in whatever community. And the census, they're used to weeding out duplicate efforts. But anyways, if you haven't done your census, you still have until the end of October to do it. And the 800 number is 1-844-330-2020. And the website, if you're able to do that, is 2020census.gov. So 2020 census.gov.
Yeah, that's pretty simple. Those are easy, and I'll be sure to put that up on the screen as we're talking about this so people will have that visual reminder. So by
Thank you.
now, if you got a paper form 6 months ago, you've undoubtedly lost it if you didn't send it in. But I think that's a good point that you make about going ahead and reporting twice rather than getting missed once, because
Yes.
they're, as you say, they'll sort that out in a heartbeat and then take care of it. John, last time in 2010, New York State's self-response rate, as you had mentioned earlier, was about 64.6%, which put us 45th on the list out of the
Yeah.
50 states, which was not
Yes.
good at all. This year has
Right.
been much more complicated. We're not going to do a whole lot better, although it is encouraging to hear that overall the count is up a little bit for the country, but then again, think about the changes in population in the last 10 years in this country. So we're still
Right.
missing a lot of folks, aren't we? We still miss about 4 out of 10 folks.
We do. And a good bit of that is because in urban areas, it can be hard to count people. New York City, for example, I mentioned earlier the Census Bureau maintains a master address file, but the master address file has a very hard time catching up with uh, people who might take a single family home and subdivide the home into 2 or 3 units, and maybe maybe the garage is converted to another living unit. That happens a lot in urban areas, in lower income areas especially. And so if the Census Bureau knows that there's one address there, they'll send one form. But if there are 4 apartments there, that means that at least 3 of the apartments never see the form, and so they get missed. And that's the biggest reason why that sort of undercount happens in states like New York.
So, John, the complete count committee has worked really, really hard in this county for months on this issue. But I know that there are organizations and people that you would want to thank, especially for their efforts. So, is there anybody you'd like to call out this year for the work of the 2020 Census Complete Count Committee here in the county?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for giving me that opportunity. The League of Women Voters has been invaluable. The volunteers that they have provided, um, one in particular, has come into my office probably 15 times. And every time he comes in, he grabs a pile of flyers and he grabs a pile of posters and he's off. And so when I go around the county, I see my census posters on post office walls, on supermarket bulletin boards, in municipal buildings, etc. All places that I know I haven't been able to get to, and I know that the League of Women Voters volunteers had gotten to them, and they were able to get out as early as May when we were just starting to reopen things. They were able to get out as early as then and get stuff out, and they've continued to do that. And we've worked in conjunction with the League of Women Voters. They were working with some of the food distribution, the school distribution efforts to put League of Women Voters outreach materials in those boxes, in those bags, etc. And they were willing to take our census stuff with them, so that, again, I didn't have to go to these 5 schools because it got taken by League of Women Voters volunteers.
Well,
The
2020
North,
has really been a busy year for the league because, of course, it's a
yes,
presidential election year. It's the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. We had the census. So the nice thing is we were able to combine a series of those things into one set of outreaches, and that really and the census material was so critical to being able to do that. The fact that you had that, and your time was limited in terms of distribution, but we were able to piggyback with you. So it was a great partnership and a real that's the way the North Country works, isn't it? It's partnerships.
yes, yes. Now, the community development program was also an important partner. They have a series of neighborhood centers, and so they have a series of food distribution sites. And so they were able to help us get materials into individual bags and boxes. But they also were able to serve as a conduit for us to be able to spend money under this grant. We had to work with certain specified nonprofits, and luckily they were one of those specified nonprofits. There was an application process that happened way back in January, February, and they got on it, and so they were one of them. So we were able to channel a number of our acquisitions of census promotional materials through them. For example, the full page ads in the North Country this week. I couldn't contract directly with North Country this week. That was the way the grant was written. So I was able to contract with CDP, and then they were able to contract with North Country this week, and that's how we got the ads in the paper. In a similar way, the North Country Association for the Visually Impaired, I was able to get the radio spots done by going through NCAVI.
Well, that's good. And we all benefit. We absolutely, everybody in the community benefits with a complete count. The money that comes back to us over the course of 10 years is critical to developing the resources and taking care of the needs of the people. John, tell people about what the count means in terms of money back here in St. Lawrence County. How much will get returned to us for every one of those counts?
Well, in 2009, the Brookings Institution did a study, and I don't know that it's been updated, but I also don't think the number has gone down. There, in 2009, they estimated that every person who got missed by the census cost his or her community over $2,000. I think the figure was $2,200 per year in foregone funding from the federal and state government for a wide range of programs, whether it's road repair or bridge construction or school and supporting schools or social services, programs for the elderly or the low income, or for the disabled, just throughout the entire range of programs that are apportioned based on either population data or income data or demographics, the number of elderly, the number of school age kids, all those kinds of things. $2,200 per year. So over a decade, that's $22,000 per year per person that gets missed by the census. And when we're looking at a response rate of only 64% in New York State in 2010, that's a lot of money that gets missed.
That's for
They're
sure.
liable to get missed. And in
That's for
St. Lawrence County, where we already live close to the edge, close to the bone, um, my little community cannot make up that $2,200 for every person who's missed every year for the next 10 years. And I imagine your community or the county can't either.
No, in fact, right now I've been doing conversations with candidates, and some of them with our local county legislator candidates, and that's one thing they talk about is, there's just a limited funds, and there are things
Yes.
you just can't go to the taxpayers for. There's just a limit to how much. So when that money doesn't come back from the state or the feds, it's a hole that can't be filled locally. So,
Yes.
John, as we wrap up, have you got any final thoughts to share with our audience about the census?
Well, I want to acknowledge one other partner. The North Country Library System worked with us to distribute the tote bags and the face masks and such. They distributed them to the 18 libraries in their system across the county, and that again was a very important way for us to get stuff out. But my final words to folks who might see or hear this would be: we still have time. There's still a couple of weeks left. If you have any questions about it, call my office, 315-379-2292, and we'll help you. But if you have the postcard, and the postcard looks like this, if you have the postcard, go to the website or call the number and do your census before October 31st. It may be, after voting, the most important thing you do this year.
Well, thank you, John, very much for those words. And I would add only that don't forget to vote as well. That's also pretty important in 2020.
Yes.
But,
Yes, it is.
I certainly appreciate you coming back on the show today and all of the efforts by everybody who worked so hard on the complete count committee, because you were working under very difficult circumstances this year that no one could have anticipated when you were thinking about getting this whole process started way back in the early part of the year. So,
That
uh,
is true.
so thank you for everything that you've done for us. You and the committee have done for us, and we will keep our fingers crossed that we go over the top in terms of beating last year's numbers, and that uh, some of that money will come back to us because a few more people will have gone ahead and returned their census form or called in and used the website. So thanks a lot, John.
All right. Thank you, Donna. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
So these conversations are a production of North Country Matters. This show is a civic collaboration between the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County and the Potsdam Public Library. Until next time, remember, our North Country matters.
Take